Hello, welcome to the review. Thanks for clicking on the link. I appreciate it. Today's video is episode 2 on my Great Explanation series. In these videos, we talk about the country as founded, what the founders believed, how they saw things, what they wanted, and Bill Whittle, the guy on screen, is just excellent at explaining these policies and beliefs in clear, easy to understand ways. So I hope you all enjoy the video. Let me know in the comments what you think. Enjoy.
The Firewall, I'm Bill Whittle. You know, many of my conservative friends and I are active in and big supporters of the Tea Party movement, and many of us seem to share a recurring, very similar experience. Conservatism, especially Tea Party conservatism, has been so vilified by the mainstream media. Journalists self-identify as liberal about 10 times more often than they do conservative, that many times we'll have our liberal friends, or sometimes total strangers, ask us to explain our horrible, knuckle-dragging, racist, extremist, whack-job views. And when we manage to do this calmly and clearly, which is difficult sometimes, I admit, given all the propaganda, well, more often than not, actually a lot more often than not, reasonable people will look at us with a kind of unique expression and say something like, well, that doesn't seem so crazy at all. I actually agree with a lot of that.
And I have to say, he is 100% right. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I was a full-blown foaming at the mouth liberal until I started looking into some conservative policy and what it was really all about. And I think, as most people find, if they actually look into the policy, they end up agreeing with conservatives more often than not. So take a look, see what you think.
So let's recap for our conservative friends and introduce to our liberal ones some of the key points of what we conservatives, especially Tea Party conservatives, would call our core beliefs. And we'll start with the two biggest ones: small government and free enterprise. Okay, why do we like small government? Well, the first and most important thing you need to know about us is that we don't believe that human nature can fundamentally change. You may not hear this a lot, but when you get down to it, it really is the basis for conservatism in general. We don't think people are perfectible if only they could make the right laws and rules. We believe that human beings, like every other creature on the earth, are motivated primarily by their own self-interests. Now, many modern people see this belief that we have, that human nature is fundamentally flawed and selfish and essentially unchangeable, as cynical and pessimistic. On the contrary, it is this belief that generates a society with the checks and balances against the natural human bastardliness that basically wants to tell other people what to do. These checks and balances prevent the accumulation of too much power in the hands of too few people. And that defiance of these checks and balances by the current political class of both parties is the real threat that the Tea Party movement is a response to. Because all you have to do is open a history book with just the most basic sense of fairness, and you will discover time and time and time again that the very same ideas being tried by big government today, ideas which we call progressive, have been tried in one form or another all the way back through recorded history, and they have always failed because they are based on what people hope and wish that human nature is instead of what it really is. You know, the British tried big state socialism in the 60s and 70s. It was a disaster. The Russian Revolution of 1917 was about remaking human nature into the new Soviet man who would share everything from each according to his ability and to each according to his need. They had to kill anywhere from 30 to 50 million people. 50 million people is 500 Super Bowl stadiums filled with innocent men, women, and children before they realized it just wasn't working. The Chinese communists tried the same thing, at least another 50 million killed and starved to death to bring about that socialist utopia, and it failed. It was a disaster. Cuba, smaller scale, same disaster. The French Revolution was fought for the belief that they could make what they called the new man, perfect and virtuous, once free of religion, income disparity, and all the rest. Now, in order to bring about that paradise, thousands of people had to be guillotined each week in what was called the Great Terror. And on and on and on it goes. The Romans in 150 BC were promoting these same progressive ideas. There's nothing progressive about progressivism. The belief that you can get something for nothing, that you can get the government to take something by force from other people and give it to you, like the money for your health care, for example, has been tried many, many times before, and it has failed every time. No, my friends, there's only one really progressive idea, and that is the idea of legally limiting the power of the government. That one genuinely liberal, genuinely progressive idea, the why in 1776, the how in 1787, is what needs to be conserved. We need to conserve that fundamentally liberal idea. That's why we are conservatives. By now, you probably think that we conservatives hate the government, but that's not true. We're law and order people, and we're all in favor of limited government to enforce responsible rules of behavior and to pay for a few very specific kind of things that are outlined in the Constitution. We're not against government. We will support small, limited, reasonable, responsibly run, frugal government, and we're willing to pay for that. What we are against is a giant, all-powerful, all-controlling state that thinks it is entitled to as much of your money as it wants and can make whatever laws it sees fit to impose with or without your consent. We conservatives think that is disgusting and horrifying. You know, even the smallest things that the government touches are fraught with this attitude. Think about it. How often do you, as an American citizen, get to interact directly with your government? Well, you get to do it when you get called for jury duty, when you have to get a passport, say, when you go to the DMV to renew your registration or to take a driving exam, and you get to do it at the post office. How do you feel about those experiences, going to the courtroom or the passport office or the DMV or the post office? Do you feel that the people there are deeply concerned about not wasting any of your time? Do you enjoy the atmosphere? Are you happy with the level of customer service you get from your government? No? Well, too bad for you, buddy. What do they care about these things? Those people aren't going to lose their jobs for being slow or rude. What are you going to do? Go to another DMV? Which brings us to the second major point that we conservatives feel is essential, and that is the liberating power of private business and free enterprise. Far from being the source of all evil, we think that private businesses are far better than big government simply because government can take your money at gunpoint, but businesses have to persuade you. Dealing with a private business is a free will transaction. Let's go back to the DMV example. What do you do if you don't like sitting at the DMV? Well, you can't go to another DMV. There's only one DMV, and that's the one run by the government. You're stuck. Some guy can't get your business by opening a faster, nicer DMV across the street and charge you less for better service. If he could, he would, and he'd make millions of dollars doing it, and your life and mine would be better for it. Look, again, don't take my word for it. If you don't want to wait in line at the post office, can you go to another post office? Well, these days, yes, you can. And FedEx, UPS, and all the rest have made a ton of money and made our lives better and easier. This miracle is called competition. And we conservatives like competition, not because we're mean and like to hurt puppies, but because of the results. Because the people running those evil, evil businesses know that they have to convince us to give them our money. They can't just take it from us at gunpoint like the noble, well-intentioned government can. And because we give a business our money out of our own free will and can go somewhere else if we're not satisfied, the private sector makes every single transaction of the day better for every one of us. Cleaner, faster, more polite, better service. It's just a difference of philosophy. You know, Nancy Pelosi said recently that we need to raise taxes because Americans want a job bill. Now just think about that. She wants to take money from the people that make jobs, that would be businesses and investors, and make them take the money that they would have used to open new factories, buy new trucks, and hire new workers, and instead give that money over to the government. Then the government, of course, after buying the Robert Byrd Center for the Performing Arts and all the rest of the kickbacks and earmarks and payola, will then take that trickle, all that's left of that once mighty river of private money, and spend it on shovel-ready projects that nobody really wants, where a $50 million project ends up hiring, let's say, 30 people.
Not only that, but the money that they took from the business just gets charged to the customer anyway. There is no business in the world that is out of the goodness of their hearts going to pay your tax or pay the tax on the product they're selling. No, when they sell the product, they're going to raise the price. It's that simple.
Isn't it better to just let people keep more of their own money, to wisely grow their own companies for the selfish and greedy reason that they'd like to be better off themselves? Doesn't that make more sense? Makes more sense to me. When it's all said and done, it's just that and nothing more. That's the Tea Party philosophy. People aren't perfect or perfectible. We in the Tea Party revere the Constitution because it limits the power of people who go into government because they crave power over others. And we prefer business to government because if you don't like the way a business treats you, you can go to another business. You don't like the service that the government provides, you don't get to go to another government. Next time, we'll talk about why we despise elitism and how even the smartest people on the planet suffer from a failure of intelligence where something as complex as the economy is concerned. And we'll also talk in future segments about how wealth can be created out of thin air.
I know a lot of you are probably thinking, free markets hasn't really been fair in a long time. And we actually don't have free markets in the United States anymore. What we have is crony capitalism, not pure capitalism, where large corporations use government and government officials to write regulations to help them while ruining competition. So the free market has been dead for a long time. What we need to do is get back to the free market and get out of the large government and over regulation from the large government. But if you just stick with I think there's 7 videos total. Stick with them. You're going to see that the conservative policy and government run based on the Constitution is the best form of government there is, and it works. It's worked for 250 years. It'll work for another 250 years if we let it. Thanks for watching. I'm out. Cheers.